Amateurs talk shit, professionals talk shop. That's the slogan.
Oh, really?
That is the slogan. This is the Talk Shop podcast. I'm debating if I'm going to keep calling it a podcast or I'm going to call it show.
I would say show. Yeah.
The Talk Shop show. This is the Talk Shop show.
It could just be the Talk Shop.
Talk Shop podcast has like a nice.
It does have that nice
ring.
Yeah, it does.
Everything's a podcast now, even if it's a show.
Well, I feel like. Should I just
do whatever?
I feel like going into 2025, a lot of people are going to start creating like reality TV shows.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I feel like so. Like calling it a show might be a win for you.
Yeah, well, especially with all the AI shit and everything like that, it's like.
Well, people are just missing like reality TV.
Yeah, actually, one thing I was thinking about when I was watching Joe and Trump. And like people were talking about this is the power of podcasting. On my mind, it's like that's the power of reality TV. Those people started in reality TV. We're just thinking about it as podcasting. But if you fast forward 20 years from the host of The Apprentice and the host of Fear Factor, that's now like I guess the people that are like running the country, which is insane to think about.
It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, the point of this show is to, I'll just be honest, it's kind of selfish. The whole reason why I do this is to gain information. All this stuff, the portraits and everything, is to just try and bribe people like you to like get on here. And, exactly. And just like I got questions and I want to know, and I'm sure people want to know as well. Yeah. So it's a lot of just like me asking questions about the industry and everything like that. The first things that I want to know about, and just like I said, I'm going to be running around, so just you can talk wherever, talk in any direction you want.
Straight on the whole time.
Yeah, so my first question for you is, basically I wanted to talk about social media. This is kind of what we were talking about when we met on that short film we were working on. Yeah. Specifically, when I look back at your page, you can do whatever. If you miss me, it's okay. It's okay if you miss.
Yeah. She's
like I said, he's the main focus. So, but anyway, you I think it was like a year or two ago, went on this mission. It looked like to do 30 posts in 30 days and see what happened. And I remember I saw like your first post and then on the last post.
That was actually last year.
That was last year. Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, it feels like a decade ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But you were like, it didn't work.
Yeah.
And now I remember you had, I think this is where I found you, was you had that post about like faking the sun or something like that. And it went like, pretty viral, whatever. So my question for you
20 million views.
So this is
viral.
This is like a big question I have for you is has social media, what is the impact that social media has had on your career or your business, if at all?
Oh, dude, social media, just any camera.
Sure,
social media, honestly, had like a massive impact. I mean, just out the gate from, I really dived into social media probably around 2019, and it was kind of a slow burn from there, but yeah, all my business up until this point has been social media. So like all my leads and everything have come from hashtags or, like an SEO. Like at the time it was Ian/Austin, Texas videographer. So like whenever anyone searched videographer in Austin, I was the first SEO that came up. So yeah, hashtags. But overall arching thing is like social media has honestly been the reason my business has been successful.
Well, you've sort of already answered one of the questions that I have for you, which is, so I guess, like I said, a lot of this is I just want to know, right? So when the different ways that people get jobs are typically like, SEO, referrals, social media is kind of like a weird referral type thing as well. I've always thought that I'd rather than doing outreach and things like that, I would much prefer to have people coming to me. So between the two, like social media and SEO, which do you prefer and what are the differences that you have found in each of them?
Well, I mean, there's a huge difference between like organic leads and then like paid leads, which you're probably talking like SEO is probably like a marketing tool, but I feel like organic leads feel like a more natural approach for me because there's more authenticity in it. Okay. So I feel like when people come to my page and actually see me, they're more likely to hire me because of there's personality in my page, as opposed to like, hire me, I'm a DP, here's a marketing post that's like promoted, you know what I mean? So for me personally, if you're not posting on social media, you're losing money, in my opinion. I've never had a, what's the main page everyone posts headshots on and stuff? LinkedIn. I've never had a LinkedIn. I've never made a cold call in my life. I've never had a paid ad. All of it's been hashtags, social media outreach, word of mouth.
That's interesting. So I'm kind of doing the opposite. So and I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm constantly emailing people. I'm constantly doing outreach. So when you before you had that video that started performing well, how was your page doing? How many referrals would you say you were getting? Like, how was that working for you?
I mean, I've gotten jobs since I've been here, since Austin, since day one, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that, like, I came into Austin and I was going to be known. So I was in every gym. I did a lot of free. Like I was telling her, I did 100 free videos out the gate when I first moved to Austin.
I saw you did a bunch of, because I'm trying to like map where I am in my career compared to where you were. You did a lot of these like fitness videos with people like just at the gym kind of working out. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, so when I came from Michigan as a wedding videographer, I came into Austin as a fitness videographer. Well, that's what I wanted to do. So I was like, in order to be seen, I needed to show up, right? So I went to every gym. Every influencer that had a bigger following at the time, and this is, I don't know, 2018, 2019. So like, those were people that weren't, like, influence now, everyone has a following, right? But back then it was like people who had 30, 40, 50,000 followers, that was a big influence. Right. Now it's like 1 million or 500,000, right? And so at the time I was like, I'll do this piece for free, but you have to tag me. So it was tag me, tag me, tag me. And I was doing, like I said, 100 free videos in that year. So you couldn't not find Say Something Productions because he was in everyone's face being tagged with all your favorite fitness influencers in Austin, right? Yeah. And all your favorite gyms in Austin. So at the time, I was like one of the bigger fitness shooters in Austin, Texas, right? So that kind of got my name out there. And from there, I was creating with all your favorite people in all your favorite gyms. That word of mouth started to travel because I was creating, decent work at the time for free. And everybody wants a free ass video. Right. So I was getting hired left and right, and I was still working a day job. So, I mean, I would go 9 to 5, come home, and edit. And then on the weekends, it was shoot. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it was like shoot every time I had the opportunity to do so. And so that's how I initially started. And then from there, and I don't even know what the point was, but I'm going to keep going. I don't remember where we were at.
No, this is perfect, because the next question was, well, how do you, so basically it sounds like you did what I call brute force attack, which is just.
I did guerrilla marketing.
Exactly. Get every single person. But then my next question is like, so how do you transition from everybody wants free shit to.
Right. So once everybody wanted free stuff, it was like, okay, I have a demand now. So now I can start pricing this out, right? And so initially it was $150 for a video. And that's still brutal. And the demand still kept going, right? Because it was like, oh crap, Ian's only $150. Let's keep hiring him. Then I went from $150 to $350, and then $350 to $500, and then $500 to $1,000. And now we won't even talk about rates because it gets kind of kind of like, I don't want to like influx or like brag or anything, but it gets kind of ridiculous at some point when like the expertise and the demand meet, then the price, the rate skyrockets, right? So that's kind of what happened. And from there, posting all the time, I still, like, my following was only like 1,000 to 1,200 on Instagram. But the word of mouth was traveling so fast that the influence on social media didn't even matter at that point. And then that was like, dude, it took me like, I want to say from 2018 to this 2024, to grow 5,000 followers, it took me 1,000 followers a year. Wow. It was a slow burn for me.
So in that, the difference though between, so like say 5,000 to, I think you're somewhere in the ballpark of like 20,000. Have you noticed any difference in terms of the quality of anything? What are the differences you've noticed?
Yeah, so unfortunately, like the bigger the following, the more respect you get, which is kind of annoying. Because then you have like your favorite people that you've been following will like actually follow you back because they think they respect the fact that you have like a following, which is kind of shitty when your work still like at 5,000 followers, my work still looked the same as 22,000 followers, but I get more respect now because of the following. Because there's more legitimacy in it, I suppose. But Yeah, man. So like the work from the last 4 or 5 months hasn't been like an exponential growth, but I gained 15,000 followers from that one video.
Yeah.
Which, you know, it's like crazy. And then because of the following, because of the 22,000 followers, I get more sponsorships. I get more looks.
You get sponsorships? Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so a friend of Music Bed, you know, I have a Nan Light sponsorship.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, yeah. So it's like, it's nice. And I always have people hitting me up to do stuff like iFootage sent me stuff, Cernata Bikes. Don't cut that one out.
Native Bikes.
The electronic bike company sent me an electronic bike.
Oh,
which
wow.
is weird because it has nothing to do with filmmaking, but because of the reach of what I was doing, they sent me shit. You know?
Yes, you could focus mostly on him. Like
normally I just bounce whoever's talking. That's all.
Yeah.
That works too.
Okay.
Other thing is, if your arms get tired or whatever, you can just relax on your like I was just imagining you kind of just keeping it on your
hip.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
But yeah,
So it sounds like you're saying it is worth it. It's worth putting the effort into versus other things like my website, social media, anything
100%.
like that. Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, obviously a website's important at a certain level of professionalism, like when you start doing, you know, DP work or even a LinkedIn account, or you're like reaching out to bigger brands, like having a more professional, polished look besides just sending them your like Instagram handle.
Yeah.
Clearly is like needed.
Yeah.
Hence why we're doing headshots.
Exactly.
But at the same time, man, like over the last 3 or 4 years, like I said, I didn't have a website. I didn't have a LinkedIn. I never made a cold call. I always sent people my Instagram account, and that got me hired, weirdly enough. So I think there's an important balance between both, but I also think like if you're not posting, you're losing money. If you're not posting, you're not being seen, right? At the end of the day, you're not being seen. And I know some really great DPs or some really good filmmakers or directors or even just content creators who have like barely any following and they don't post and they're complaining about being slow and not having work. It's like, well, you're not being seen. Like, how are you being seen? Are you marketing it with your own money or are you marketing it with your own time?
Right.
You know? And for me, I take the latter. I'd rather use my time than my own money.
Yeah, I think that is the core problem, especially for me. It's like, because I don't got any money. Mm-hmm. So then it's like, so how do I do this? Yeah, okay.
And we obviously live in a world that's like, you could just pick up your phone and start talking about your work. Yeah. And it might go viral, right? And how long, like you could sit in your car and be like, okay, hey guys, blah, blah, blah. You know, I just shot portrait headshots. And then all of a sudden it goes viral. And it's like, oh, you're known as the headshot guy. Or you're known of like, and then money comes in, right? So it's like, it takes you, if you don't want high quality, it takes you like a minute, 2 minutes to pick up your phone, sit in your car and rant.
Yeah.
Right? Complain about it or talk about it, you know, or like nobody knows what you do really because you don't post about it.
Right.
So how am I supposed to know? I didn't even know who you were until Brady Bissett, right?
Yeah,
but you have interconnections because you shot CK and CK and I are friends, but I had no idea who you were until I met you because you don't have a presence on social media. Yeah. Which is weird, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah, it is.
You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so that's interesting. So what, like, when you say, like people are following you that you respect and things like that, but in terms of like clients or like, what would be some noticeable differences in terms of the kind of clients you got or how the clients treat you or anything like that? Things that you wanted, like what are some differences that you wanted that you got?
I wouldn't say like a following will increase like your professionalism or the respect factor from like your peers. I think that has to be shown in your actual work. You know what I mean? I think you have to like, just because you're on social media doesn't mean you're good. Right. Like I know people who've gone mad viral, like again, talking on their phone in their car. That doesn't make them a pro cinematographer or like a good filmmaker or a good photographer. But having a presence and having good quality work together will get you that respect, will get you those companies, you'll show up more and people will appreciate like, oh, I know he's gonna churn out great quality and I know his personality, so I know he's not gonna be an asshole on set, right? On top of it, like, I might get more out of my buck for this. Like if I hire this guy, he might create BTS, which might create more pieces of content surrounding like my brand. Yeah, at its core, it feels like that's kind of like capitalism is, you got to convince somebody with more money that you can make them even more money. Yeah, I mean, even some of the biggest YouTubers who like say like Music Bed sponsors like your piece, they're obviously gonna want more out of just one piece. So nowadays it's like, oh yeah, you can create a commercial, but what are the assets outside of the commercial I'm gaining from it?
Yeah.
Like, you create a
So have you been running into that?
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing.
So that's
now.
kind of like what your pitch is a little bit to clients now? Could you walk us through that?
Well, let's say for like, if I wanted to get financial backing for a piece, or I wanted help with a piece, I would obviously offer more like, hey, there's going to be like a behind the scenes look, there's going to be a YouTube video, there's going to be 3 social pieces. But I think even as a content creator reaching out to a brand, be like, hey, here's the focus, but here's the pillars outside of that. I'm going to create these pillars outside of this piece. And that's why this asset's going to be good for you. Because like one video for people now is not going to be enough.
No, it isn't.
That's just the content world we live in. So
yeah,
if you can pitch, if you can leverage more than one video, if you can create pillars around one video, like for me, like we did Hands and I created 15 pieces out of Hands. Like that was a short film, right?
So I saw a bunch
and I created 15 pieces. Now, that was a spec ad. So now if I went to a brand and was like, hey, we made one video, but look at all this viral content or this content pieces that created outside of that. Or the Shelby Cobra commercial, right?
Yes.
No one ever saw that full piece because I never posted it.
Yeah.
But that 7-second video did 20 million views. Right? So it's like, hey, now you can pitch that to a brand because you have those impressions. You have
So
some
almost
analytics to show them.
So if I'm understanding, it's almost like you're saying that the spec ad is almost like the icing on the cake. The actual spec ad is like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
All the other stuff is like the meat or whatever, which is, now I'm destroying that analogy, but you get the point. Where it's like the meat, the meat of the cake. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, now it's like one piece is not efficient enough, right? So even like working with ladder, I do ladder work now. It's like, cool, we created the manifesto, but what are the pieces leading up to the actual piece? Now we have to have a teaser. Now we have to have behind the scenes. Now we have to have, like, there has to be like a leading, almost like a hype around every piece of content now. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So like now people, probably in the next 5 years, they're not even going to hire DPs and all this shit. They're going to hire influencers.
Yeah.
To create content because there's more virality in it.
Yeah.
There's less money in it too. Like,
or like influencer DPs essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess you're bringing up an interesting area that I hadn't thought about, which is so like what are some things that go into when you're pitching to a client? It sounds like some things that you've learned would be to add all the other stuff as part of the pitches. Look at all the BTS. Look at all the different things that we're going to do. Is that a critical part of your pitch? And what are some other things that you've learned in your pitching process?
Well, it's hilarious you're asking me that because I know it's going to piss off a lot of people probably, but I don't do pitches.
You don't? Okay.
Right. Like the half the battle of me doing all this spec work and putting money into my own content and putting my own time into my content is brands
come to you
and companies come to me.
Okay.
I don't have to go to them. That's why I said I've never done a cold call in my life, which is crazy to say because a lot of people are doing outreach. Like,
that's what I'm doing, and I don't want to do it.
Right.
I don't want to do it.
And I think like half the battle is you have a platform. Like the organic reach is there if you post, if you show up. Half the battle is there, instead of having to do all this logistical shit on the back end. That's like half the time doesn't even work. Because a brand doesn't know you. They don't know your identity. They don't know who you are. They don't know your personality. They don't even know what your work looks like. And it's like, well, here's some stuff. Okay, cool. There's 1 million photographers. Like, who are you now? Like, that's the new era we live in, right?
Yeah.
It's like 1 million photographers, a lot of good photographers, 1 million people out there doing the same shit. Like, but what makes you different? Well, here's what I can do. Look, this is my look. Okay. Still, like, who are you? What do you bring to the table? Like, what can you create outside of that? Like, what's your personality like? Do I even want to work on set with you?
Yeah.
And that's not all cases for everybody. That's just my case. Like for me, and last year, what changed it for me is like Harrison and Bryson. They're really big social media content people, and they're like, well, I think we're moving into a new era that like brands want to know who you are and your personality more than like your work. And I was like, oh, you're right, because I was afraid to like post unpolished shit.
Yes.
Because I'm like, if I don't post polished stuff, brands aren't going to hire me. And they're like, oh no. Brands want to see your polished stuff, but they also want to see your personality.
Okay.
And because of that, those guys like Harrison and all them, like they have a whole, they have a huge following because of their personality. I mean, they're getting hired by like On, UFC, you know what I mean? It's crazy.
So is that what you're doing now? You're posting both?
I'm posting, well, here's the issue for me personally. It's like now I work for Ladder.
Okay.
So I'm not really having to worry about brands as much. So I'm posting, I want to be more of a filmmaker, more of a DP in the cinematography space. So I'm posting a lot of behind the scenes. I'm trying to create my own brand, right? I'm not so much worried about like getting brands to shoot for. I'm trying to build like my own personal brand.
Yeah.
And in that, like you said, it's interesting now that like DPs are now becoming influencers. Like there's going to be this mix, I think, coming in the next 5 years where like your favorite cinematographer is also your favorite influencer in filmmaking.
It's already happening.
Like Brady Bissett.
Sure, exactly, yeah. Or Mark Bone.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one right now.
Mark Bone, Danny Gevirtz, Brady Bissett. Like,
sure.
All huge YouTubers creating films.
Yeah, and there's also, I mean, now, not to like, amateurs talk shit, right? So not to say like who or whatever, but some of the OG influencers or whatever just really weren't that good at it, right? So now it's like this weird, like Carl Shakur to me is the ultimate version of he's really, really good, and he's also like wildly successful. So we're kind of getting that like nice merge where it's like these are people that I respect and I actually would like to be as good as them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so you keep bringing up the subject that I want to get into, which is spec ads. So when I looked at your page, you started off doing like a lot of these like one-off videos with like a particular person, and then somewhere along the line, you start moving into like these spec ads. So this is exactly where I am right now. I'm trying to do spec ads and things like that. So I have like a whole bunch of questions about this. Number one is, how do you just get the ball rolling on that? Like, what were the first steps that you took when you wanted to start doing spec ads?
Yeah, so it's as cliche as it is, you just start, right?
Yeah.
It's like a lot of times we're filled with like massive excuses, like we don't have enough money, I don't have enough lighting, I don't have enough so whatever, right? But like everyone has a fucking iPhone. Everyone has an iPhone, everyone has a story to tell. So you just do it, man. You just start. Like you don't have to create this full-fleshed, huge commercial.
Yeah.
With this huge backing. I mean, Jasmine Q and I did everything in my pole barn, right? We set up a couple of lights and we shot a Bose commercial. Or, you know what I mean? It's like, it is what it is. So everyone comes to that question like, well, how do you just start? And it's like, you just answered it. You just do it.
So
you just have to begin.
So you start with, just like making it happen.
You just have to make it happen.
And I remember you telling me about this. This was like a critical thing for me is who do you select? Like what kind of brand or whatever do you select when you want to do your spec ad?
Well, I don't remember who it was, but someone told me it's a lot easier to just, it's a lot easier to, how do I want to word this? You don't have to throw a Nike logo at the end of your piece because the odds of you like getting Nike are pretty limited. So for me, like I was telling you at your thing, it's easier to go find local people that are also, growing in the space. Let's say like Jacoby Plunges, right?
Sure.
It's like, okay, I know Jacoby Plunges is a cold plunge thing. Cold plunges are pretty huge now in the last 2 years, right? Like, especially in Austin. Yeah. I'm gonna make a piece for cold plunges. Like, it's a lot easier for me to land Jacoby than Nike. You know what I mean? So,
exactly.
So personally, out the gate, I would do that. I would like throw Bose. I would throw Bose at the end of like my spec ad or a Nike logo or like this and that. But I think if I was to do it again, I would try to start with locals first. I'd try to like blenders.
Blenders. Okay.
Or do a blenders piece, right? I have a better chance of blenders seeing my piece and liking it and wanting me to recreate something or going into business with them than I would Oakley.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So personally, you just create whatever you want to create. Like in the industry you want to create in. So for me, it was fitness at first. So I was creating like Nike, Bose, Adidas specs.
Yeah.
Because those are the brands I dreamt of working for. But the odds of them like seeing it are pretty limited. So I probably should have like focused my spec work on smaller brands, but still with like the same overall arching goal. It's like, oh, I want it to look like a Nike piece, but I'm going to throw like I don't know, what's a shoe right now that's pretty popular? That's not huge.
Hoka is probably
yeah,
the
like
big
Hoka
one.
at the end of it, which Hoka is fucking huge too.
Yeah, they are huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
Evo
Flux
or something
footwear.
like that. Yeah, there you go.
Flux footwear.
There you go.
Like, there you go. But yeah, man, at the end of the day, you just do it. You just create it. And the outcome is a learning experience. That's the whole point of spec ads. It's like you get to invest and put your own creativity in it, because a lot of times clients will pull creativity out of it because they have a specific look that they want. They have a specific style they want. And you can't, like, obviously practice on someone's dime or some client's thing.
No, exactly, yeah.
So, yeah.
So so the big learning curve is, it sounds like you started with trying to like impress big brands, right?
Yes.
And then, yeah, obviously that's like impossible. That's impossible to do.
Not technically impossible, because Danny Gewirtz did it.
Oh, okay.
He did a Jeep commercial, and
Interesting.
And I think it was Jeep or something, and Nike saw it, and then Nike hired him. So it's not impossible. It's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But I think the overall reason I do specs is, one, I just like creating to create. I don't want expectations placed on me from a brand, or I don't want them to take the creativity out of the piece that I want to create. And two, a lot of my practice has come from the learning experiences on set creating specs. And you can't fail on a client's dime.
No.
But you can fail on yourself.
Yeah.
And learn from it and grow and get better. So I think creating just specs in general are like a huge asset to not only finding work, but also just getting better, growing, and like failing on your own dime. Yeah.
What was a client that you picked up, or that you shot for with your spec ad, that led to a client?
I don't know if you saw that Whoop piece that we did.
I did.
Okay, so like super unplanned. Harrison just hit me up. It's like, hey, I want to create a Whoop piece. We made it very run and gun. There was no money involved. Super on the fly, barely any planning. And from that, we landed a Mace Fit, which is also an active wear company. But because they saw Whoop, they were like, oh, we really like that piece you did with Whoop. We'd like to put you on retainer for a Mace Fit.
Wow.
Yeah, so like it does happen. It's not Whoop. It's not the brand that we anticipated seeing it, which Whoop did see it. They actually set up a meeting with Harrison, and there was like some logistical stuff happening. We never got to actually shoot for Whoop, but I did land a retainer client from that piece.
That's amazing.
And it was super spontaneous, super on the fly, super run and gun.
Okay.
We just threw Whoop at the end of it, right?
Yeah.
But we went into that spec with...
So did you shoot with the product? Did you do anything?
Yeah,
you did.
So that's the only thing we did budget-wise, is we invested
in the
a Whoop
actual
piece.
Whoop, yeah.
And we took some time to understand what their branding was. So we're like, this is the style Whoop goes in.
Yeah.
This is the overall look that Whoop likes for their brand. And then we shot it like that, you know?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to just be like, hey, I'm going to shoot a Nike piece and try to make it look like a Hoka piece.
Right.
Completely different branding.
Okay. So you make these spec ads, and then I guess like people are actually seeing these, right? So you're talking about like somebody picks you up, you get a retainer for them. You didn't have to send it out to anybody. You still didn't do any cold calls even.
Nope.
Interesting.
Social media.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's like anything, that goes like somewhat viral. Like Harrison has a huge following, so like the video did like 300,000
Oh, okay.
But you know how people are like, Liv or Blake or Whoop, like, Whoop, you hope you see this, or tag Whoop.
Yeah.
It's like people just jump on board, and they're like your own free marketing, right? With
like
social
other
media,
your friends
it's like,
and whatever. So
yeah,
like,
your friends do it, or think of like any influencer who posts something about a famous person, right? It's like a basketball guy does a cool thing, it goes viral. It's like, and they're like, Michael Jordan, you should look at this, or da 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 da. It's like, it's like now and everyone's tagging Jordan. It's like do, and all of a sudden Michael Jordan sees it. That's the world we live in.
Right.
That's like what we live in now. So like you post a Whoop piece or you post your spec piece, your friends like it and they're like, oh shit, Whoop should see this. They tag Whoop, 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 Whoop. Somebody from Whoop, if it goes viral enough, is going to see it from their marketing team, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just the crazy world we live in.
Okay. So basically, yeah, I mean, my current plan was, it's funny, I just shot one for Roca. It's more of just like me and my camera, that type of thing. And I just kind of imagined that I was just going to send it to them directly and everything like that. I don't know, who knows, but what are some differences? So that's kind of the next thing I was curious about is like, so it sounds like the shift that you made, if I'm understanding correctly, between just being a videographer and then getting to like being a director of photography, right? Like that shift came from doing spec ads. Is that?
Yeah. So that shift, funny enough, I was just doing videography work I still do it for a YouTuber. Her name's Julia Renee, and I still shoot in the fitness space. But Jasmine, I don't know if you know who Jasmine Q is.
I haven't met her yet. But
she was doing a short film, and it was about skateboarding. It's called Push. It was my very first short film that I ever shot, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I went into it blindly, right? But you fake it till you make it. Like, you pretend you know what you're doing until you do. I went in there and I fell in love with cinematography. I was like, this is the coolest shit ever. Like, I'm not just pan whipping and throwing puzzle pieces together anymore. I'm like, there's a plan here.
Yes.
There's a look. There's an overall goal here. And I fell in love with it, and I was like, shit. So that was the pivot to me. It was like, oh, I need to become a better shooter. I need to understand lighting. I need to understand story. I need to understand all these assets I had no idea existed because I was just doing this shit with my camera with bodybuilders, right? I was like, oh, this is cool. Like hype video. And then I fell out of love with it. Same like with weddings. It's like, went into wedding shooting, you know, didn't really think about the overall story that I could have like built like Justin Porter does. Like he creates like this entire reality TV series on weddings.
Right.
There was like a huge market there that could have been happening, but every wedding videographer at the time shot the same shit. 60 frames per second, slow motion. It was reception.
Gimbal.
You know, it was reception, wedding, dance, right?
Exactly.
And so it's the same thing when I got in the fitness space. Everyone was doing pan whips. Everyone was doing hype videos. And eventually you're just like, what else is there? So yeah, the short film like honestly changed my life. It like made me fall in love with filmmaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so it is kind of, it sounds like it's a combination. At its core, I mean, it sounds like the theme here is it's more about proving yourself.
Oh, I mean, that should be everybody's. You should always want.
Because you hear sometimes, a lot of times you hear,
Yeah.
my first guest. It's weird. My first guest kind of changed my life. He was very informative. I got to get him back on. He continually, he's been in this industry for a long time. But his advice was very much, almost it sounds like ideologically the opposite of yours.
Oh, really?
Which is that his is more about the hang. Because you kind of hear that where it's like, it's all about the work versus it's all about the hang.
What do you mean by hang?
Like the who you know and all.
Oh, that definitely plays a huge part.
Okay.
Yeah, that definitely plays a huge part.
Well, I want to hear your perspective on that.
They always say you're like the product of the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? So like if you're the smartest person in the room, you should probably leave the room. You're not learning, you're not growing, you're not doing anything. So you want to be not the smartest person in the room. You want to surround yourself with successful people because successful people drive successful people.
Yeah.
Right? And networking, meeting Jasmine, I did a podcast with her, came into Austin 2020, did a podcast, that developed that short film. The short film changed my life and drive me into cinematography. And then from there on out, built a friendship with Jasmine, and we've done multiple commercials or pieces. We're also on the Maze Fit retainer together. So like, networking, I would say, might be one of the main things you want to do is like find the people you want to surround yourself with and create with and grow from that. I don't know. It's like, personally for me.
Well, the interesting thing though is that the way you're putting it is you're talking about networking with other creators.
Networking in general.
He was talking about more about like networking with the clients. Like there's a lot of people that spend a lot of their time with just hanging out in a scene or in a client.
I think networking in general, like I'll go on set and hang out with a producer I've never met before. But all of this drives like a specific arching goal for me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wouldn't just go
Well, which is what? What is the overarching goal?
Well, just to be, you know, a good cinematographer, successful in what I do, and obviously make money from it. But I don't think that's the overall goal. Isn't to make money. It's just to be the best version of myself and create the coolest shit I can possibly create for me.
So what are you like when you? So you're saying you like you get on a set or something like that to like network with producers. What does that normally look like? I mean, you just kind of hanging out, or
a lot of times it's like shadowing.
Yeah.
Like if you know a producer or a DP, like producers really help you like find more work. Producer is like the person that brings you into like a lot of this.
Yeah.
But like even hanging out with DPs that I like think are better than me, or again, not being the smartest person in the room, and then going and shadowing these people and getting the knowledge from that. But like you're saying, the hang, I don't know if we're similar to that, but we are kind of in some sense. It's like networking is a huge part of this, and meeting people.
How do you balance that though? Because I mean, obviously for a lot of people, like myself, it's a kind of a weird balance where it's like, you know, a lot of this stuff is very introverted. I'm not an introverted person, but I've been making myself be introverted by staying home.
I'm super introverted.
Really? You don't come across as introverted.
Super introverted.
Okay.
I think I've just grown to be outgoing in certain settings.
Okay.
I think you have to be somewhat outgoing in specific areas of this business, or otherwise, just like, you know.
So what did that process
But at
look
the
like?
core, I'm like mad introverted.
So you're,
like I'd
you're
rather be
basically
home
you're
doing
the
nothing.
opposite. You're making yourself extroverted. I'm making myself be introverted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the same thing for like being on camera. Like this isn't comfortable.
Really?
There's three. Yeah, no way, dude.
You seem honestly very comfortable. Yeah, that's just,
You know, it's not comfortable by any means, but if you put yourself in uncomfortable situations,
yeah.
you grow from those, right? Or you become comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like you just have to. It's like a lot of thing with fear is like you're fearful of it until you do it.
Yeah.
Like I never wanted to go paragliding or jump off a mountain and float around, but like a part of the experience of living is like doing things that scare the shit out of you. Yeah. Otherwise, you're living a boring ass life.
What's the last thing you did that scared the shit out of you?
Dude, everything scares me.
Really?
I was in Switzerland. I think it's called paragliding. Is parasailing behind a boat? Yeah. Okay, paragliding. So we just ran off a cliff and went paragliding in Switzerland, and I have a terrible fear of heights. But it was an awesome experience. You know? So it's like a lot of these moments scare the shit out of me. Like meeting, like going and shooting BTS for Brady Bissett, who is a huge influence in YouTube that I've always like looked up to.
He was one of the few I actually did not know about, believe it or not.
Like that made me nervous, but if I
were you nervous?
Oh, sure.
Wow, you did. This is so funny. You did not seem nervous at all.
Like I said in the beginning, like you have to fake it till you make it. Okay. And that's so cliche, but like you're never going to experience it if you don't try.
Yeah.
And if you don't pretend you know what you're doing, no one's going to hire you.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck I'm doing ever. I just do it.
Yeah.
I figure it out as we go.
Huh.
You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at the core of what you're saying is that you keep putting yourself into these like, it's honestly, it's almost like the core of fitness itself essentially is to essentially.
Reps, consistency. Yeah, man, it's like, you know, everyone is scared of something.
Yeah.
But you have to just try. I don't know. I would rather jump off a building and hope I live than never take the risk of like doing this. If that metaphor sounds crazy, but like I would rather jump out of a plane hoping my parachute releases, right? And get that experience. The same with like this world we live in. Like if I don't try to take the leap, how would I ever know? Like the very first post when I quit my job was, I'm either going to sink or swim. Back in 2020 when I quit my job and went full time, like I'm either going to sink or swim. But how will I know if I don't jump into the pool? Like, how will I know if I don't take the leap to do it? I'm just going to sit here every day and bitch about my job, working a 9 to 5 and never take the risk? Like, I don't know. That's everything. Like coming into here, I'm like, oh, this is going to be intimidating. Like,
really? That's so crazy, dude.
I'm
I don't
so
know why
introverted.
I keep getting surprised by this. I'm just like, I don't know. Okay, but that's cool. So, I mean, it sounds like the personality type that it takes, what you're describing is just like, yeah. I mean, it seems that way for a lot of people. It's just like, you got to kind of push through the suffering until and just absolutely send it.
There's just so many things that it's like you only get lucky through consistency, right? So like, people now looking at me are like, oh, he just like got 22,000 followers overnight. No, like I did this shit for years.
Yeah. I remember I've
been shooting since 2013.
Yeah.
I didn't get recognized until 2024 on anything, right? So it's like there's a 10-year period in a lot of things, or the 10,000 hour rule, right? Or like 10 years of experience before you actually like know what the hell you're doing from a professional level.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's like everyone wants it to happen overnight because that's social media, right?
Well, I remember you saying in that at the end of that, you posting every day, your 31st post or whatever for October, you saying like, I didn't notice any difference at all. It's just luck. And then I find it kind of poetic that like, wasn't it like a year later that you had one that popped off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like it's completely changed your life per se. It's more just like incrementally improved it a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, not like, I mean, just because it went viral doesn't change anyone's life. Unless you're like, maybe you're a musician and like this song goes viral, you know what I mean? But like, from my standpoint, it didn't really change my life. It just...
What do you think it would take for a video to change your life? Do you think it's possible for a video to change your life?
Maybe.
Yeah?
Maybe.
What would that look like, do you think?
Probably like specifically, maybe if I was to shoot a Nike piece, a spec, and it went viral and Nike like brought me out. You know, like those would change your life, those circumstances, which is possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because you go viral, it doesn't change your life. It definitely helps.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't change your life at all.
So going a little bit back to the spec stuff. So, I mean, you start doing spec work and it starts leading to actual paid gigs, right? What are, actually, I apologize. We're just bringing this over here. But yeah, so you had some questions. I want to hear your questions.
Good posture.
Okay, so we did talk about social media stuff and how important it is for Instagram to be a good quote-unquote portfolio for you. What about other types of social media platforms? You have Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. What about those?
Well, that's a good question because they all, I mean, the funny thing about content now is like you can really multi-purpose all your videos on every platform, and you probably should be posting on every platform because that just continues to give you more potential reach. I know TikTok and Instagram are very different, but like the car piece that I did that did 20 million, I still posted it to TikTok and it did 700,000 views, right? So it's like, it didn't do 20 million like Instagram did, which I thought TikTok would be the opposite, right? It would go more viral there than the Instagram. But those on TikTok specifically are where the brands are coming from that are like sending me stuff. I think there's a different reach when it comes to TikTok for people than there is Instagram. I don't know why. Obviously algorithms are quite different, but even like YouTube Shorts is huge now. So yeah, multi-purposing your content or finding ways to like multi-purpose your content so you don't have to exert as much energy or effort and still getting more result.
So would you say you are noticing a difference in the kind of leads that you're getting, or really just like anything from different platforms?
So like specifically on Instagram, I feel like this is very, for me, since I've been trying to grow Instagram since 2018, it's very more community oriented. I feel like I have a lot more community there. I meet a lot more friends there. It's kind of like Facebook, right? You like met a bunch of people on Facebook coming up, or MySpace. I just dated myself. You know, Instagram's very community based, and then like TikTok, you could post like 16 times a day, and eyes are gonna see it differently. So like TikTok for me isn't my growth engine. I feel like I don't grow well on TikTok. Maybe that's because I'm more of a community type person. Yeah. And less worried about like posting religiously 4 times a day. So yeah, but I would say always, I mean, we have 1,000 platforms. Why not regurgitate the same piece on every platform and see what happens? You're gonna advance your eyes. It's like math, right? It's like more opportunity, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, let's just keep rolling. You might have to follow us. Did you want to change your jacket or anything like that?
You want me to change
Let's do that, yeah. So if you just want to follow us.
Black? Is that what you want?
Let's do black. And then I do want to adjust.
Do you want the racer jacket or the straight black?
I kind of like the racer. Which one do you prefer?
Either one, man. I got a fuzzy brown jacket too.
Focus more on look than sound because we've got all different kinds of things going with sound. So yeah.
I just feel like that racing jacket's almost too.
It's a pretty flashy one.
Too flashy.
Yeah, it's a little flashy.
It's like very distracting.
And let's make a little adjustment with the mic here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to grab this and just kind of tuck this more over to the...
I did have another question.
Yeah, of course. Let's hear it.
So you did touch up on just start, right? The cliche, everyone hears it, just start. So as a person who is coming up in videography myself, I run the cycle of imposter syndrome quite often.
Ooh.
I feel like a lot of people deal with it.
All of us do. Yeah. So the question is, how do you deal with imposter syndrome?
Yes.
I wish I could tell you. I deal with imposter syndrome every day. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're getting our inspiration flooded to us constantly, right? So a good way to maybe avoid imposter syndrome and like find your own creativity is like getting off social media. I've tend to lately go on like Pinterest or look at coffee table books for art, or go to like an art museum. Taking the time to like slow down and like experience life, and maybe giving yourself some grace could help with imposter syndrome, but we all deal with it. I mean, I still deal with it because I'm constantly seeing my peers, right? You like, no matter what level you get, to me, I've always said I'm forever the rookie, right? I feel like a rookie internally always, because I'm never as good as like I want to be, which is a perfectionism issue, but also like I feel like I can reach to where my peers are, but it's not like an instant overnight thing. It takes so much fucking work. and so I feel like I'll forever deal with imposter syndrome. I just feel like that's...
Tell me about it.
That's a human instinct to feel like you're shit. Like even you guys say like, I'm bombing this, or you said I'm bombing this, I said I'm bombing this. It's like it's just a natural feeling to not feel like you're adequate enough or perfect enough. And that's a human thing, I think. So there's really no good way of dealing with that besides like maybe stepping out and going for a walk in nature, like getting off of social media, which is counterproductive if like you're trying to post all the time.
No, very relatable.
Yeah.
I have done that.
I've
had to do that.
It happens. I've gone on like 2 months sabbaticals from like social media because I'm like depressed. I'm like, dude, it's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts.
It is. Okay, so sorry. I'm like,
no, go right ahead.
I'm sure a lot of your viewers are going to be coming up, right, in this world or in this space. The biggest question that I see a lot, and was my question for a long time, is like, what equipment should I start buying?
Yeah.
And how do I start doing that?
Again, it's like such a simple answer, and it feels like it's like, oh, there's no stupid question, because there really isn't, but the best piece of equipment you have is what you have, like your phone, right? Everyone, I don't care who you are, 90% of people have a phone, right?
Right.
So it's like, well, I don't have a Sony or I don't have a Canon. It's like, but do you have a phone? Cool. Do you have a story to tell? Yes, because everyone has a story to tell, right? Even you, female in jiu-jitsu. How common is that? That's a photographer. Now we have a story. Now we have content to produce. We have a phone. Like, the best piece of equipment is the one that you already own or have. And then once you start having money, like for me, I won't change cameras until I outgrow the piece of equipment that I have. So like if I outgrow my phone, I probably will have money because I'm generating business or I'm getting more comfortable, whatever. So like you're shooting a Lumix, right? It's like, well, I want a red.
Yeah.
How do I get there? Well, you'll get there once you outgrow your Lumix. Have you outgrown that camera specifically? Have you got enough money to do that to buy a red? I don't even have a red. You know what I mean? It's like, I want a red. We all do.
Yeah.
but is it necessary? No.
No.
I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, it's like the best piece of equipment is the one that you already own or you can afford. Everybody wants the next best thing, but nobody knows how to use what they have to their advantage. Like I know someone that shoots on a Fuji camera who's creating shit like he's shooting on an Ari, but he's flexed and put so much effort and knowledge and understanding into the piece of equipment he already has that he can create a look that looks like a $100,000 camera. It's like then you're to the point like, okay, I've outgrown this camera. I should probably try something. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think that makes perfect sense. Actually, so this might go hand with kind of what my other question, which is that, so what I have learned through this is that there's a point where you start to hit the technical limit of what you've got, or even just your skill set, and it becomes all of these other ancillary skills. So for example, today I'm wrestling with the studio. We've got an open window, and it's like I'm adjusting the lights every 5 seconds. If I had a better studio, I would get a better result, right?
Yep.
The perfect example would be, you want to be the best landscape photographer, you got to be really good at hiking.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious is, what I'm trying to learn more from is, what are the ancillary skills? Like we talk about networking or whatever, but what are ancillary skills that you have learned that have made you a better cinematographer?
I think like you just said, is like problem solving is probably one of the biggest skill, right? I mean, I've ran into doing $100,000 budget commercial and still having those small, minute problems that just like occur. Like we don't have enough neg. We can't block the window.
Yeah.
Shit. How are we going to shift? How are we going to pivot? And then it goes back to specs, right? It's like, oh, I ran into these problems. Here's how we're going to do it better the next time, right? Or I'm going to bring more shit, or I just have the knowledge now. So it's like outgrowing what you already know, or you're a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot that goes into it. Like, oh, this camera is not good enough. It's like, well, do you own any lights? No. Okay, well, the camera is only as good as the sensor, and the sensor can't take enough light because you don't fucking have it, right? Exactly. It's like you're shooting in the dark, and this Lumix doesn't shoot at 12,800 like a Sony.
Right. What's an example of something that like problem solving or like an ancillary skill that you were like, okay, I need to develop this, and you develop that skill, and then you notice a difference?
You got any examples for like what you've done?
Oh, I mean, so, okay, yes, I do. So we talked about before, when you got here about me shooting outside. Mm-hmm. And a big part of it is, okay, so like, for example, stuff like this, what are we working with? We got a 300 watt, mm-hmm. we got a 60 watt, and another 60 watt, right? If you're trying to light the entire body, that is not ideal. You need big lights, and you need a lot of space. Mm-hmm. So what happened to me was looking at other people's work and going, okay, so what is the difference between me and these like high-end fashion photographers? And they got really big lights. I don't have really big lights. Yeah. What's the biggest light I can get? I can get the sun, right? What's the biggest space I can get is outside, right? And then I ran into another problem, which is time of day. You look at this like location scouting. Location scouting, that's it. That's really the big ancillary skill that I've been really working on for myself is location scouting. And I've got a lot better. So, yeah, so what are some examples that, you know?
I mean, bro, that goes for a lot. Like, for me, understanding pre-production and, like, really investing into pre-production like you said, it's like, I know already my problems potentially going in and how I can solve those by, like, developing this pre-production, right? So it's like...
what would be an example of something in pre-production you had to...
let's say the running thing, for example, that I'm about to do, right? We're going to do it all in outside natural light. Okay. I already know in the pre-production how I want the look to be, but I'm not going to be able to achieve it because I don't have Hollywood budget.
Right.
So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go rent modifiers and bounce. So my wides are what they are, right? We don't have a Hollywood budget, so we're not going to be able to create it. But I know I'm going to run into these issues ahead of time because I've pre-planned this entire, spec ad. And so I think, like you said, it's like you don't have enough light for this, so you always shoot natural light, but like understanding that like noon is going to suck as opposed to sunrise and sunset. So, better skin tones are probably going to happen at sunrise and sunset.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're looking for a hard light approach, but you're going into that with the knowledge and the expertise that you already have from failing or doing shit like this.
Yeah.
It's like a hiker, like you said, you're going to need to be able to be a good hiker if you're a landscape person. Well, if you can't do that, you're not going to probably shoot good landscape.
Exactly.
But
so we'll wrap up with this then, and then we'll move into like just like a headshot session, which is just going to be real quick. You said you got to be out like now, basically.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Go ahead, wrap up. Yeah.
So what I think this is going to be like my last question I'm going to ask for everybody right now, which is just who do you, in your field, do you admire, like as a cinematographer, and what are the steps that you believe right now are what it's going to take for you to be where they are?
I don't know his last name because it's like hard to pronounce, but his name's like Ryan Takeshi or something like
Interesting.
that.
He's a cinematographer.
Cinematographer, but also a director. So he directs, does the DP work himself, and edits and colors. So he's like a Swiss Army knife.
Nice, okay.
But his work is like outstanding. And to answer your question, to get as good as him, I guess I'm just going to have to continue to practice, right?
Yeah.
Consistency. Like she said, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But you'll never know if you don't try. So if you don't put the work in to like learn these things, like YouTube Academy, right? That's where I graduated from, YouTube Academy. Like every time I had an editing problem, like how the fuck do I do this? I went to YouTube, I just typed in the search engine, how do I create a motion effect? How do I, you have to have the want in order to know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. It does make sense.
You have to put some effort in. Like, this shit is not easy by any means. So you don't know what you don't know until you try. End of the day. Like, you have to try. And like we were saying, referencing, like, a bodybuilder is not going to get big without being consistent and putting the work in, like eating and doing these things that it does to what it takes. So in order to be a Ryan or a Brady or anybody like that, I'm going to have to continue to do spec work. I'm going to have to continue to play with light. I'm going to have to continue to grow my knowledge of lighting, cinematography. And I feel like that's an endless possibility. I feel like you're never going to truly understand an art to its full potential.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what's interesting about your answer, going back to your question about what gear to get, I'm always kind of torn about the gear thing, to be honest with you, because I do think it matters. But nothing you said.
Gear does. I won't lie to you. Gear does matter. It does help a lot. But if you don't have the knowledge or to use it, what's the point?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, cool. I got a giant jib. I'm not a jib operator. How the shit? But it's gonna help the movement. It's gonna help, or a Steadicam operator. I don't know how to do that, but I bet it will help the piece.
Yeah.
Well, I'll find somebody who knows how to do it. And I also think, for example, like you said, if you need to buy that specific piece to make it better, why not rent it? Why not rent it and see if it actually made it better, or if you understand how to use it? Like a 70-200. How often do you use a 70-200 lens?
Well, I'm different because I shoot comedy, so all the time. It's
for
like
me,
my bread and butter.
So for me, I own a 70-200 or a GoPro.
Yeah.
I own like 5 GoPros. I use them randomly.
Yeah, I
like
almost
barely
never
ever.
use
The
my GoPro.
7200 barely gets used.
Yeah.
That bitch was $3,000.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, why did I need that when I could have just rented it for my specific moments that I might have potentially needed it? So it's sometimes we're just so eager to buy because we're just constantly like, oh, I need that to be better, but you technically don't. You just need more knowledge.
Yeah. So how do you handle gear acquisition syndrome? I mean, that's what this is.
Yeah. I used to be really bad. I used to buy like everything, and it never really made anything better until I started like paying for knowledge. So courses.
So you basically switched, instead of having gear acquisition syndrome, you switched to knowledge.
Yeah.
KAS, you switched to knowledge acquisition.
Yeah, because
which is kind of what I'm doing right now.
I knew a lot of people who had like grip trucks or
Yeah.
had tons of light, and they weren't good. Like, not to be like, mean about it, but they weren't at like a level that I thought they would be at, owning all this stuff. And I was like, oh, it's because they're not investing in themselves, and they're not investing in knowledge.
How do you invest in yourself? Like, what are the resources you're using to
YouTube.
invest? Just YouTube, but is there anybody
YouTube,
specifically?
I bought courses, like the Art of Documentary course I paid for.
So that made a big difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want it, specifically, I was like, I want to shoot a documentary. I don't know anything about it. Well, the Art of Documentary is literally a full course on how to like shoot, edit, and develop a documentary. Well, why would I not invest in that?
Yeah.
If I want to be good in documentaries. Instead, most people will be like, I want to shoot a documentary, so I'm going to go get an FX6 because Mark Bone has an FX6, and I'm going to get this, and then go shoot the documentary and have no concept or idea of how to tell a story.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool, you got a semi-beautiful image, but the story sucks ass. Oh, it's because you didn't have any knowledge on how to like create a story.
Yeah.
End of the day, I always think knowledge over anything, really.
Over gear.
Yeah.
That's a good way of wrapping it up for a talk shop. All right, so basically, this next part is just going to be kind of quiet. We're just going to do just regular headshots.
Sweet.
We'll probably make a few adjustments, but it sounds like the mood you're going for is probably something just kind of that shows that you're a creative professional.
Yeah, pretty casual.
Did you want to be looking through the camera? For men, I suggest looking past the camera.
I'll
you don't want to
look.
look. Okay, cool. So maybe like in this direction right here.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and adjust your hat. Actually, if you don't mind, I'll just do
Yeah, you want me to drop this mic? Are you still?
I could Photoshop that.
Okay.
I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to make a little adjustment.
Yep.
Sorry if this is...
Yep, no, do your thing.
I regret it every time where I'm like, I'll take care of that in post.
Yeah, I know.
The Photoshop is... it is kind of a pain.
We can hide
But
it.
yeah, fuck it. Let's hide it. For that, that's just enough that like I can...
Especially if this is a silent part, like why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also
Well, here,
gonna
just
walk
tuck it behind.
Behind him. While you
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
so you have some good B-roll.
You need it on?
Yeah, you can just tuck it under if you need to. Or take it off.
Yeah, I'll just drop it.
Sweet. How you feel, man?
Good.
Good.
Hopefully.
I think we definitely got better with your questions because I definitely was like... I had a bunch of questions and I edited...
She was talking. I'll leave the mic on for 2 seconds. She was talking about you have a big following, right?
I do.
Do you get any money from that? Like,
I used to a few years
Which is
ago.
interesting. That's something that I'm always curious
So-
about. Yeah.
Instagram used to have monetization. Now they do, but now they don't.
but do you getting any leads from your followings?
I have the job that I have now because of my Instagram.
Okay. Because I know a specific girl who like had a huge following back in 2020, and she was like, "Oh, I'm not making any money," and I was making like close to 6 figures at that time, and I had like 1,000 followers.
Nice.
And she was like, well, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, dude, following does not equate to dollar signs. It never will be.
Yeah.
It opens doors for me.
It opens doors,
Like,
but
if you
everyone
don't
has this
take anything-
expectation that like, oh, I have 1 million followers, so I'm clearly like making them.
I don't have that much. So I just bombed my ass off with these print sales. I was hoping that would be whatever. But the first indication that I was like, oh, this actually is huge is I was doing a music video and I needed dancers.
Yeah.
And I was like, I posted something like looking for dancers. Got no bites. Second time I posted like, look, guys, for real, I need dancers. overwhelming, like just like I know these dances or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is hugely advantageous.
Yeah. So there's ways to like leverage it. Have you seen the photographer who does prints? He has like the BTS photo of him doing like a weird ass photo, and then he like does this print.
No.
He's like super viral. He goes like super viral every time.
Interesting.
But he'll like take a photo of like a girl on a light, like up on like a light or something, and then like he flashes to the final. So like I feel like we're in an era where you can't just be like, hey guys, I'm doing prints. Like you have to show the experience.
Well, you know what I realized
like,
is actually when I was looking at all the people that like might be interested or whatever I realized like everybody I know is poor. Like everybody that follows me is poor. I'm like, this is not gonna work. Like you need a network of people that can afford to buy prints and things like that. You know.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
yeah, man.
Sweet, man.
Yeah. If you just tuck that in, this will just probably just take not too long.
Can we hit and record? Do you want
Yeah, that's fine. Sweet. Thank you, sir. Okay.
I'm just going to get the background of you.
Hell yeah. Actually, could you mind just taking a little bit? Hell yeah. All right, you want to look past it? All right, look 1,000 yards like you're reading a billboard. You're trying to read. No, I mean, that is what it is. Like you're looking real far. Something interesting. So you know the whole smizing thing, or you pick up your eyelids?
I'm not good at modeling at all.
That's okay. For men, I've noticed it is more difficult for men. Women can seem to do it. Yeah, you're actually doing. It's funny. You're doing it right now. But
I was like freeze.
But then as soon as so for guys for some reason we have a tough time doing this. So basically we like when you organically smile, you pick up your eyelids like this, and then when you just want to like if you fake smile, then you go like this and you leave your eye. So the idea is that you're going to smile with just your eyes. They call it smizing. So let's see if we can do that. So basically, look at my hand, 1,000 yards through my hand. Yeah. Okay. And actually, I'm gonna probably pick this.
I'm dead, bro. I know. I was like, oh god, dude, taking photos of myself is so an unnatural thing.
I feel you.
I'm like, oh brother.
I'm getting better at it. Okay, cool. Yeah. And so let's look right at my hand right here, and let's look 1,000 yards through, like you're trying to read something, and see if you can kind of pick up those lower eyelids and smile a little bit. I mean, it looks good, man. So these are pretty tight. These are on your head. Let's go ahead and turn your head just a smidge this way. Yeah, right here, right past the camera, looking through the camera. And let's look over here. Yeah, perfect.
Shutter going.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's kind of roll your shoulders back a little bit. Take a deep breath. Well, I don't want you to get too tight. I'm gonna adjust this here, and I'm gonna adjust this here, actually. But I don't want you to get too tense or anything like that. But just take a deep breath. And go ahead and relax, and yeah, go ahead and exhale. Okay, through my fingers though, don't look straight down the barrel, just look past the camera. I like it. This looks really good. I think I'm getting it, man. Did you want to smile? Did you want to look serious?
I'll do it,
Yeah?
I'm a better videographer than I am a photographer. Yes. Yes. I was like, wow.
Oh, this is great.
Some movement.
Yeah, man. I think I got it.
Sweet.
Cool. Yeah.
That's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Cool. All right, cool. So this has been episode 4 of the, I think I'm going to go with podcast. So I'm going to stick with podcast for now. This is the Talk Shop podcast. Dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I know I learned a lot. I think people are going to learn a lot as well.
Hopefully we didn't bomb it.
Hopefully we didn't bomb, even though it felt like I was bombing the whole time. You know what I mean? But yeah, dude, I really appreciate it. Thank you for coming out.
Of course.
Thanks. And that's a wrap.